Well, hello and welcome back to my fancy schmancy studio, my 2019 Jeep Wrangler. I spared no expense for this channel. You know, you can tell I've got non-stabilizing video holder here. That's why you're bouncing around a lot. Sorry about that. Tip-top audio and whatnot, but I think more important than the production value is that if I can say some things that will help someone else, and it helps me. It helps me to get some things off my chest and to be able to talk about. So here we go. This is my second video, and I want to talk to you about something that really is I don't know, a struggle for me to even discuss, because it's caused so much pain for me in my life, and just kind of, I don't know, drove me to several bad decisions and bad worldview, and, you know, all of the above. And that's this idea of carrying guilt with you, religious guilt. Now, before I go any farther, I'm going to tell you, yes, I do believe there's things that we should feel guilty about. Guilt can be a good thing. If I hurt someone and I feel guilt over that, that's a good thing. That's conscience. That's my conscience coming into play. And so, you know, or ate the last piece of chicken or something like that, that's, you know, I'll be honest, I don't feel guilty about that most time, but, you know, there are things we should feel guilty about. This is not talking about that guilt. But the problem is that sometimes through our upbringing or just the way we think or have approached our faith, we can't separate the good guilt from the improper guilt. And I grew up Southern Baptist in a way. Our churches that my dad pastored are Southern Baptist, but we were heavily influenced by the independent fundamentalist Baptist mindset and ideology and worldview. And if you've ever heard of the IFB churches, you'll know. And it's not every independent Baptist church you see. Some of that just means they're not a member of a denomination. Sometimes that's just who they are. But that certain fundamentalist mindset, very specific, it's very harsh, very unforgiving. A lot of times it would blame you for things that are outside of your control. There is for example, there's a documentary series about IFB churches and sexual abuse, and you will hear the one who was really kind of responsible for that movement to be kicked off, Jack Hiles, out of Hammond, Indiana, a suburb of Chicago. You'll hear him blame women. He literally says that for every man that goes to prison for rape, there should be a woman, he says, half-naked woman that should be there next to him, because that's the real cause of the rape. and I don't even want to get into discussing about, modesty and whatnot and the appropriateness of it. Dude, if you rape someone, you're guilty, period. You're in wrong. You're the wrong. And so that's an extreme. Most of us were not involved in that type of an extreme situation. But anything that you did that went against their worldview, watching the wrong type of entertainment, listening to the wrong type of entertainment, sometimes even feeling compassion or empathy for certain segments of society, you were made to feel extremely guilty. And that mindset carried over into the way you saw God and the way you related to God and you related to your own decisions. And for some of us, it gets to the point to where we worried about every thought, every action, every temptation. Some of the most innocuous things we would worry about. And oddly enough, the IFB believes in a Calvinist doctrine of what's called eternal security, that once you're saved, once you give your heart to Jesus and repent, there's nothing you can do that will send you to hell. But you even worry about that. Did I do the right thing? Did I really mean it? Did I truly get saved? I'm going to hell. And that sense of hell too, the overemphasis and the over dramatization of hell in every service, and that was the ultimate threat. And you couldn't even worry about the ultimate threat of being separated from God in your relationship, because that truly was the worst thing. Wasn't my separation from God, and that I really need that connection to God, and I need to love, and I need to be compassionate, and I need yes, I do need to live a godly life, but man, you worried about hell all the time. And so what this caused for me was, for so many years, I spent searching for the best way to live my life to please God. And if you know anything about IFB pastors, it doesn't matter how loving, caring, supportive, or in agreement the congregation is, you cannot please those guys, because they got to preach about something, and they're going to preach about you and your actions. They will just go at it. And so you get to where you see God as this, not just grandfatherly, which is not a good thing to do, but you see him as an expression of that person, that pastor, and you're like, I can't please God. So I spiraled. I went from church to church, and even knowing that my theology was going in a different direction, when I first started thinking about baptism, it does save us. It is the beginning of our Christian life, and it is sacramental. And I started thinking about the Eucharist as the body and blood of Christ. I had to suppress that, because to me that was the devil coming and telling me, hey, you're getting this wrong. The way, not the devil, the devil coming to me and telling me, hey, these beliefs are what you need to believe. It doesn't matter how much I really believed it. There was always in the back of my mind this fear that somehow these beliefs were going to lead me to hell. And there's a lot of that in varying levels in people's lives. A lot lot of people feel a lot of guilt, like they can't please God, that they can't be a Christian, and they tend to see everybody else, maybe even a facade that everybody else puts up, as being holier than them, and they worry that, hey, I'm just missing the mark. And the way that we see it in Eastern Orthodoxy and then Catholicism too is that a lot of people will go to confession and they'll start confessing things, and I did it, and the priest will just look at you like, I don't know, I don't know why you're confessing that. That's not sinful. And you're confessing, and you're like, even temptation, you'll start confessing, I was tempted, and the priest is like, well, did you give in? No. And you're like, but I've sinned. And the priest is like, no, you were tempted. There's a line there. But this obsessive worry over, I gotta do more, I gotta give more, I have got to be live a cleaner and cleaner life, and it becomes your own personal cult. And secretly, you carry around a lot of unnecessary and irrational guilt. So, sometimes this is called scrupulosity. You'll hear that word thrown around, and you may or may not fit that label. But I guarantee you, some of us at some point in time, we do have that guilt. And I'll tell you what it did for me. I tended to be up and down. I would start feeling the guilt, I would be down, and I would be like, I need to pray more, I need to read my Bible more. And see, that's the thing. Usually the things you say in of themselves are not bad things. Praying more is not bad. Reading your Bible more is not bad. Going to church more is not bad. But the extreme that your guilt pushes you into, I need to quit doing this, that, and the other. It gets you into this almost panic mode. So you start doing these things, and you give, and you give, and you give, and you do, and you do, and you do, and you pray, and you pray, and you pray, and you're not feeling God, and you're not sensing God's approval. And what tends to happen is that you get to this point to where you're doing all of these things, and everybody's like, man, this person is really, really on fire for God. And you are doing well in the eyes of others, but inside, that guilt, that desire to be loved by God, that desire to please God is never quenched. So if you're like me, what would happen is you would get to that point, you're doing all these things, you're wearing yourself out, you're stressed all the time, you're reading, you're praying, you're doing, but your heart is not really joining itself to God, because you are just trying to get a moment's relief from the pressure you put yourself in. And then you start going downward, and you may actually sin. Sometimes I would. Sometimes I'd do things that just to get a relief, and I thought, well, I'm just going to give up. And hit that low, and then you would have a moment to where the guilt overtakes you again. Even on that your downward spiral, a lot of people don't even sin when they do that. They just kind of get into a normal life. They just wear out, and they go to church and they pray, and they, but your guilt won't leave you alone. And your normalcy is actually what should be a normal way of life and a way of living is on the downward, but the guilt tells you you're a horrible, horrible Christian. So, what do? I'm pulling into a car show, by the way, here, and so I may be a little distracted trying to find a place to park. But what do? You've got to give yourself a break. You have got to give yourself a little bit of, a little bit of a chance to look at your life and go, you know what? No, I am not. I'm not this horrible sinner that I've made myself out to be. I may be a sinner, but I am not. And my best is good enough. I can relax. I can move forward and do what I need to do. You've got to get to where you're in a normal cycle of things. One of the things I suggest you do, stop listening to these people who are always polemical on YouTube. Stop. Just stop. The people that are always complaining, who's always going, well, the Pope is this and this and that. And the other. Stop listening to the negativity. Start listening to your priests. Get around some healthy people. Start smiling more. Start enjoying life more. Start understanding that God does love you and your best is good enough. Start seeing your faith, your prayers, your attendance at Mass, all of these things as life-giving, not that you're having to make up for you being a certain way. Let God's life breathe into you. And if you miss a prayer time, so be it. If your mind wanders a little bit at Mass, so be it. Is that good? Well, no. But don't beat yourself up over things that you cannot help. Things that are part of our natural life. We are fallen human beings after all. And we are here, but Christ came, and we're here, and we're in His church because there is something about us that needs help. And so start listening to Catholic teachers about scrupulosity and about these things. You're gonna find that you can do better. You can get help, and you can have joy in your Christian life. Well, I am going to go look at these cars. I am going to probably get myself a burrito for dinner. My wife is out of town, and we'll see what's going on. Thank you guys for listening.